Every day, the sun rises. It feels normal, predictable, inevitable. You wake up, you see the light, and you never question it, because it has always been there. But what if that light was not guaranteed? What if every sunrise was the result of a battle that you never see? In ancient Egypt, the sun was not just a star in the sky. It was a god, a force, a living presence that carried the weight of existence itself. That god was Ra. To the people who lived under his light, Ra was everything. He was creation. He was order. He was the reason life existed at all. But they did not worship him simply because he gave light. They worshipped him because they understood something that most people today have forgotten. The light was never permanent. Every single day, Ra would rise into the sky, travel across the world, and bring life to everything beneath him. But when the sun began to fall, when the sky turned orange, and then red, and then black, that was not the end of his journey. That was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Because when night came, Ra did not rest. He descended down into a place that no human could survive. A place without light, without warmth, without order. A place where everything that exists begins to fall apart, the underworld. But this was not like the underworld of Hades. This was something far more unstable, far more violent, because in this world, nothing stayed the same. Reality itself could break, and waiting within that darkness was something ancient, something that did not belong to creation, something that existed before order itself, a being known as Apep. Apep was not a god. He was not a ruler. He was not something that could be reasoned with. He was chaos, pure, endless, uncontrollable chaos. He did not want power. He did not want control. He wanted something much simpler. He wanted everything to stop existing. And every night, as Ra descended into that darkness, Apep was waiting, watching, preparing. Because if Ra failed, even once, the sun would never rise again. And that is what most people never understood. The sunrise was not guaranteed. It was earned every single day through a battle that no one could see. As Ra entered the underworld, he was no longer surrounded by light. His golden radiance faded into something dimmer, something more fragile, because in that place, light was not natural. It had to be carried, protected, fought for. Ra did not travel alone. He moved through the darkness on a great solar boat, surrounded by other divine beings, each with a role, each with a purpose. Some protected him, some guided him, some fought beside him, because they all understood the same thing. If Ra fell, everything ended. Not just their world, not just humanity, everything. Because without the sun, there is no order. Without order, there is only chaos. And chaos does not create, it destroys. As the boat moved deeper into the underworld, the darkness became thicker, heavier. It was not just the absence of light, it was something else, something that felt alive. The deeper they went, the more unstable everything became. The ground shifted, the air changed. The very structure of reality began to distort, because this was Apep's domain. And here, he was strongest. But first, there was silence. A silence that did not feel empty, but watchful, like something was waiting, just beyond what could be seen. And then, it began, a movement in the darkness, slow at first, almost unnoticeable, but then it grew, a massive shape stretching across the void, endless, unnatural. And then, two eyes opened, burning, watching. Apep had arrived, and with him, the darkness changed. It was no longer still. It moved, twisted, reacted, as if the entire underworld was responding to his presence, because he was not part of it. He was what existed before it, and every night, he tried to take it back. Ra stood at the front of his vessel, calm, unmoving, because this was not new. This had happened again and again and again, an endless cycle, a battle with no final victory, because Apep could not be destroyed. He could only be stopped for one night, and then he would return, stronger, more aware, more prepared, and that is what made this fight different. This was not a war that could be won, only one that could be survived. And as Apep moved, the first attack came without warning. The darkness itself surged forward, like a wave, crashing toward Ra's vessel. The gods around him reacted instantly. Weapons of light, barriers, energy, all of it clashed against the advancing chaos. But Apep did not attack like a warrior. He attacked like something that did not follow rules. His form twisted, changed. One moment he was a serpent. The next, he was something else entirely. Unstable, unpredictable. And that made him dangerous, because you cannot fight something that does not follow structure. And yet, Ra did not move. He did not rush forward. He did not react in panic, because he understood something that the others did not. Chaos does not need to be defeated. It needs to be controlled. And control comes from something very different than force. As the battle intensified, as light and darkness collided, Ra began to rise, not physically, but in presence. His light grew stronger, not brighter in a normal sense, but more stable, more defined. And that is what began to change the battle. Because while Apep was chaos, Ra was order. And order does not overpower chaos. It contains it, slowly, carefully, relentlessly. And that is what this battle truly was. Not destruction, but balance. A constant effort to prevent everything from collapsing. And as the fight continued, as the darkness pushed harder, as Apep grew more aggressive, Ra's light did not falter. It held, because it had to. Because if it didn't, there would be no tomorrow. But the battle you see is not the most dangerous part, because Apep does not win by force. He wins by breaking order. And order is not something you can simply defend with strength. It is something that must remain stable. And that is where the real danger begins. As the clash between light and darkness continues, as energy collides, as the underworld itself trembles under the force of it, something subtle starts to change. Not outside, but inside. Because Apep does not just attack Ra's world. He attacks what holds it together. The structure, the balance, the certainty. He distorts it, slowly, almost invisibly. At first, nothing seems different. The battle continues. The gods fight. The light holds. But then, small inconsistencies begin to appear. Movements that do not align. Timing that feels slightly off. Energy that reacts differently. And that is when the first realization hits. Something is wrong. Not with the attack, but with reality itself. Because Apep is not just trying to destroy Ra, he is trying to unravel the system that keeps everything functioning. And once that system breaks, everything else follows. Because order is not just about control, it is about consistency. And once consistency is gone, nothing can be predicted, nothing can be maintained, nothing can survive. And that is where the battle shifts. It is no longer about stopping Apep directly. It becomes about preserving stability. Because if stability collapses, the fight is already lost. Ra understands this. That is why he does not chase Apep. He does not try to overpower him. He focuses on something else, holding everything together. And that requires something far greater than strength. It requires control, absolute control. Because even the smallest disruption can spread, like a crack in a foundation. At first, it seems insignificant, but over time, it expands, until eventually, everything collapses. And that is exactly what Apep is trying to do. Not destroy instantly, but weaken, gradually. Because slow destruction is harder to stop. It is harder to see. And by the time it becomes obvious, it is often too late. That is why this battle is never rushed. Every movement matters. Every reaction matters. Every decision matters. Because one mistake can change everything. And as the battle continues, Apep begins to change his approach. He stops attacking directly. Instead, he withdraws. Not in defeat, but in strategy. Because chaos does not always need to confront. Sometimes it waits, and waiting can be far more dangerous. The darkness settles again, but it is not the same silence as before. This silence feels unstable, like something is about to happen, but hasn't yet. And that creates uncertainty. And uncertainty is where chaos grows strongest. Because when you are uncertain, you hesitate. And hesitation breaks rhythm. And rhythm is what keeps order alive. Ra remains still, watching, because he understands what is happening. This is no longer a physical battle. This is something deeper, a battle of control, of awareness, of perception. Because if he reacts too early, he gives Apep an opening. If he reacts too late, he loses control. And in that space, between action and inaction, is where the outcome is decided. Time stretches, not in a measurable way, but in perception. Every moment feels longer, heavier, because everything is being calculated, every possibility, every movement, every outcome. And then, without warning, Apep strikes again. But this time, it is different. He does not attack Ra. He attacks the space around him. Reality itself begins to distort. The ground shifts. The structure bends. The consistency breaks. And suddenly, nothing feels stable anymore. And that is the most dangerous moment. Because when reality itself becomes uncertain, everything else becomes vulnerable. Even the strongest force can fail if the foundation beneath it collapses. And that is what Apep wants. Not to defeat Ra directly, but to remove the ground. He stands on. And as the distortion spreads, the gods around Ra begin to struggle. Their movements become less precise. Their reactions become slower. Their coordination begins to break. Because order requires alignment, and alignment is being disrupted. And that is when Ra moves. Not with speed, not with aggression, but with precision. He extends his power, not outward, but inward, stabilizing, reinforcing, rebuilding. Because the only way to stop chaos is to restore order, not destroy it, not fight it directly, but correct what it is trying to break. And slowly, the distortion begins to fade, not completely, but enough to regain control, enough to continue. And that is when the balance returns. Not victory, not defeat, but balance. And that is all Ra needs, because balance is what allows the cycle to continue. And that is what this has always been about. Not winning, not ending the battle, but ensuring that it can happen again. Because as long as Ra rises, there is still order. As long as order exists, there is still structure. And as long as structure remains, everything continues. And slowly, as the darkness begins to recede, as Apep withdraws once again, the first sign appears. A faint light, not strong, not overwhelming, but present. And that light is enough. Because it means one thing: the cycle continues. And as Ra ascends, as he rises once again, as the light begins to return, the world above never realizes what just happened. Because to them, it is just another sunrise, just another day. But in reality, it was something else entirely. A victory, not of destruction, but of balance. And that is the truth no one sees. Every single day exists because that battle was not lost. And yet, even after everything you have just heard, there is still something missing. Because this story is not really about Ra, not completely. It is about something much closer, something you experience every single day. Because the battle between light and chaos is not just happening somewhere far away. It is happening constantly, in ways you don't even notice. Every decision you make, every thought you follow, every action you take is part of the same pattern. Order or chaos, clarity or confusion, structure or collapse. And just like Ra, you are always moving through both. There are moments when everything feels clear, when your thoughts align, when your actions make sense, when everything moves forward in the right direction. That is your day. But then there are moments when everything feels uncertain, when doubt appears, when direction disappears, when everything begins to feel unstable. That is your night. And just like Ra, you don't get to stay in one forever. You move between them, again and again and again. And every time, you face the same choice, not consciously, not directly, but constantly. Will you maintain order or allow chaos to take over? And just like Apep, chaos does not always attack directly. Sometimes it appears as doubt, as distraction, as hesitation, as the feeling that nothing really matters. And that is how it grows, not by force, but by weakening structure, breaking consistency, interrupting clarity. And if you are not aware of it, it spreads slowly until everything begins to feel unstable. And that is the moment that decides everything. Because just like Ra, you cannot destroy chaos completely. You cannot eliminate it. You cannot remove it from existence. But you can do something else. You can contain it. You can recognize it. You can refuse to let it take control. And that is what creates order, not perfection, not control over everything, but stability, the ability to hold things together, even when everything around you is trying to pull them apart. And that is why this story matters. Because it was never just a myth, it was a way of explaining something that is always happening. The constant movement between light and darkness, between structure and chaos, between clarity and confusion. And the truth is, most people don't lose because chaos is stronger. They lose because they don't notice when it begins. They don't see the small shifts, the small disruptions, the small moments where things start to fall apart. And by the time they realize it, it already feels too big to control. But the truth is, it never starts big. It always starts small. And that is exactly how Apep fights. Not with one final attack, but with constant pressure, constant disruption, constant attempts to break structure from within. And the only way to stop that is awareness. To notice when things begin to shift, to recognize when clarity is fading, to act before everything collapses. And that is what Ra represents. Not just light, but consistency, the ability to rise again, no matter how many times darkness returns. Because that is the real truth. Darkness always returns. Chaos never disappears. It waits. It adapts. It tries again. That is why this battle never ends. Not for Ra, not for the world, and not for you. But that does not mean it is hopeless. Because every time the sun rises, it proves something. That the battle was not lost. That order held. That structure remained. That chaos did not win. And that is enough. Not forever, not permanently, but for now. And sometimes, for now, is everything. Because it means you get another chance. Another day, another opportunity to hold things together, to move forward, to choose clarity instead of confusion. And that is something that should not be ignored, because most people live their entire lives without realizing that they are part of this cycle. They think things just happen. They think order is automatic. They think stability is guaranteed, but it isn't. It never was, and it never will be. It must be maintained. Again, and again, and again, just like Ra. And that is why he was never just a god of the sun. He was a symbol of something far more important. The idea that no matter how many times darkness returns, light can return too. Not because it is stronger, but because it refuses to disappear. And that is what keeps everything alive. And tomorrow, when the sun rises again, you will see it, just like always. But now, you will understand something that most people never do. It is not just a sunrise. It is proof that the battle was not lost. And that is the real story of Ra.